fluid situation, I guess is the word.
Yes.
Suffolk County Court of Common Pleas, it's given session, Honorable Christy Curtis presiding.
Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. LaPrince, you may call your next witness. For the next three.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, got caught off guard. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat, and then once you're seated, if you'll remove your mask and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Sure thing.
If there's any reason, I don't think there will be. There's.
Okay.
Sir, if you would, once you get settled there, would you please introduce yourself to the jury by telling them your full name, and then for the court report, please spell your last name.
Sure. My name is Don Illig, I-L-L-I-G.
And sir, how are you employed?
I'm employed as a fire arson investigator with the State Fire Marshal's Office here in Ohio.
And how long have you been with them?
A little bit over 8 years, 8.5 years.
And prior to your job with the Ohio State Fire Marshal, what did you do?
I was employed as a special agent with the Department of Justice Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives.
And how long did you do that?
I did that for a whole career, 29 years.
All right. And just for background purposes, what did you do for them that was related, if at all, to what you do now?
Part of the jurisdictional duties of ATF was arson, federal arson laws and the federal explosive laws. So I participated and conducted many fire investigations and several investigations involving various types of explosives.
So it kind of fit nicely with going to the Ohio State Fire Marshal upon retirement, right?
It did, yes.
Okay. So in order to become I guess, an agent for the ATF, and then with the Ohio State Fire Marshal, what kind of training and background did you have to have?
I got a degree in criminal justice from the University of Toledo, and I certified police officer through OPATA. When I was hired with ATF, I attended their ATF Academy. Basically, it was two separate academies, a Criminal Investigator Academy and then the ATF Academy, which together was approximately 16 to 18 weeks. And that training involved arson investigations, examination of arson scenes, and explosive investigations.
All right. And so you, in your job with the Ohio State Fire Marshal, you are actually an investigator for the state, correct?
Correct.
And do you have a jurisdiction in which you were assigned?
I have 4 counties assigned to me. That would be Richland County, Ashland County, Crawford County, and Wyandotte County.
All right. So you didn't mention Summit County, correct?
I did not.
And so, but yet you're somehow involved with this case, correct?
Right. We often, depending on what type of fire scene we have, we often get sent to other jurisdictional areas to assist other investigators.
And is that what happened in on May 15th of 2017?
Yeah, on that date, I was contacted by Investigator Brian Peterman, and I think that was roughly a little bit before 6 a.m. in the morning. He explained to me that there had been a fire in Akron, and that the Akron Fire Department had requested assistance from the State Fire Marshal's office. Brian requested that I go to the scene and meet him at the scene to help conduct the investigation of the fire scene.
All right. And so is it fair to say that Mr. Investigator Peterman was the lead investigator on the case?
Yes,
And that you were there as a aide or assistant to him in whatever he needed help doing?
that's correct.
All right. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 116. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is a drawing that I completed after we completed the fire investigation scene. This is a computer-aided drawing that kind of represents or visualizes the scene as we that we examined that day.
And you created this?
I created it, correct.
And now, obviously, it's on the computer, but this is a fair and accurate copy of that?
Yes.
Okay.
What's that number? I'm sorry.
116. So just to kind of narrow this in, you were present when the K-9 India was there doing their search for accelerants, is that fair?
Yes, that's correct.
And you were present and saw the placards and the little, I think they're little orange markers that are put down for the dog when he hits?
Yes, correct.
And based on those placards, you then created this diagram, is that fair?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to show you 116 on this, hopefully on this overhead. Let's see here. Oop, okay. And is that what I just showed you, states 116?
Yes.
All right. So for all your training experience and all your years of service, basically you're here today just to identify this for us and tell us what this is. So on this picture, what are we seeing here? What is the big outline of this? What does it represent?
This represents the front porch of the residence on Fulton Avenue.
Okay. And when you so let me see. So
Work on the document, Cameron. I think he can annotate it because
Okay.
it's on the document.
oh, that might be
I
true.
think the problem was that the other, okay.
It was a PowerPoint.
Yeah, see that box in the right-hand corner of the screen, sir?
Yes.
It's a touch screen. Go ahead and touch that. Ken. The annotation is not working.
I think I know they would be to shut the system down
All
and
right.
fire back.
No, that's okay. So, investigator, you had indicated it represented the front porch. Would this outline here, this rectangular outline that I'm pointing at, would that be the porch?
Yes, correct.
All right. And this here, so we get orientation right here, what is that?
Those are the front steps leading up to the porch.
And this would be then the front door?
Yes.
All right. So if we're, showing you, and this is states 113, I believe. And of course, now I'm going to have to switch over, right?
Yeah.
Oops. Okay, so showing you slide 5 of State Exhibit 113. Is this the porch you're talking about?
Yes, it is.
All right. Now, at this point in time, it looks like there's a lot of debris on the porch.
Correct.
All right. When you created this diagram and put the placards down, that was all cleared. Is that fair?
Yes, yeah, that debris was, most of that debris had been moved off the front porch, correct?
Okay. And then in the, so just as an example, slide 14, we see placards 1 and 2 in front of that porch. So if we go back to the diagram, that kind of corresponds to the little yellow squares with the numbers in them on the diagram. Is that fair?
Yes,
So if the jurors were able to have these photographs in this diagram, they could kind of match up and see what it is you're depicting on there. Is that fair?
that's fair, yes.
And then these placards would also match up to any testing or items that were submitted to Reynoldsburg Lab for accelerants. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. Counsel Jones?
One second, Judge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Did you ask me why items was not marked?
Well, I did.
Okay, that's fine. We got no questions, Judge.
All right, thank you. Investigator, you're excused.
Thank you.
You may call your next witness.
Thank you.
We'll call Investigator Brian Peterman.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Go ahead and have a seat. Once you're seated, if you remove your mask, pull the microphone in, keep your voice up, and then I'm going to inquire that you comply with my previous order and have not discussed your previous testimony with anyone prior to today.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. You may proceed, Mr. LaPrenzi.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, obviously you've already been introduced previously to this jury, but just for the record, please just state your name and spell your last name for the court reporter.
Brian S. Peterman, Peterman.
And Investigator Peterman, obviously you've already testified about your training, experience, and education, so we'll skip past that and go directly to the issue we're here for. Did you have the occasion to investigate a fire on May 15, 2017?
Yes.
And how did you get involved in that fire investigation?
So approximately 5:30 in the morning of that morning, Lieutenant Todd Webb of the Akron Fire Department contacted me directly on my cell phone to inform me that
Your microphone's on. Tap on it for me, will you? Okay, on the side, there's a button down at the base of the microphone. No, yep, see it? Thank you. Go ahead.
Lieutenant Todd Webb contacted me directly on my cell phone, informed me that they were on a scene of a multiple fatal fire on Fultz, and was requesting assistance from my office.
All right. And when you got the call about a fire on Fultz, did that mean or have any significance to you?
Yes, it was like a deja vu because we'd already done a fire about a year ago on Fultz with a double fatality, and now we have another fire on Fultz with a fatality.
And were you aware of whether or not anybody had been identified as the culprit in the 2016 fire at that point?
No,
Okay. You weren't aware, or you didn't know?
I was not aware.
Okay. So, if you recall, approximately what time would you have been at the scene of 693 Fultz?
Approximately 6:30, I arrived on scene.
6:30 a.m.?
A.m., yes.
Okay. And when you arrived, what was the status of the fire?
The Akron fire was still there extinguishing the fire. Akron PD was there conducting a canvass of the area. I was briefed by Lieutenant Webb of the possibility of 7 to 8 people still inside the residence that they were looking for, and suppression activities are still ongoing.
And so at that point in time, for you, what are you going to do? What do you do while you're waiting for them to, I guess, make the place safe?
Couple things is I contacted my supervisor, requested for additional investigators to respond to the scene. Then I made contact with the Akron PD who was on scene to inform them that the previous fire we had some video evidence from residents up on Fultz is that we should try to go back up there and see if those video cameras were still in use.
All right, and now you're talking about Chester Williams's home?
That's correct.
All right. And as far as you know, was that then accomplished?
Yes.
Okay. Once the, and I should go back, in that first fire, I believe we talked about it a little bit, but in that first fire, you were not involved in the investigation of who might have set that fire. Is that fair?
Akron PD, yes, Akron PD did most of those interviews and that on the first fire.
All right. And your major function in that situation was to determine whether it was arson or accidental?
Yes.
Okay. And in this case, did you take on that same role?
Yes.
And APD was doing most of the interviews and things of that nature for purposes of determining who might have set this fire, if it was intentional?
Yes, our office, the State Fire Marshal's office, is an assist agency. So at that point in time, we're assisting Akron Fire and Akron PD in the investigation.
All right. So once the fire was suppressed, what, if anything, did you do?
So Akron Fire had to have a special structural collapse team respond to the scene to shore up the interior of the structure so that the removal of the victims could be performed before anything else was done.
All right. And so at that point in time, are you basically in a standby mode?
Yes.
Okay. After that's all done, obviously I know it took some time and we've already had testimony about the removal of the victims in this case. After that's all done, then what is it that you do?
Then we start conducting our scene examination and our investigation.
And you went through the process of how you typically, or the system that you go through when you do a fire investigation. Did you go through that same system here?
Yes, it's referred to as the systematic approach.
Okay. And so when you did that, what, if anything, and I guess I should, using State's Exhibit 113 PowerPoint, we're on slide 1, that's just our title slide. I'm sorry, 114. And we're at slide 2 now. Do you recognize this?
Yes, that's the Fultz Street area where the fire occurred.
All right. And can you touch the right corner of that screen and see if that...
There you go.
Yeah, Ken, when I was back there, Ken gave me a little hint. Apparently there's something touching
Hit that
the
clear
screen.
button at the bottom on the left.
There we go. Okay. So if you want to point something out for us, you can draw it on the screen. I think you did that last time, okay? So where are we looking at here? Where's 693 faults that you reported to? Okay.
That's 693 volts there.
Okay. And you said you started doing your process, and what you told us last time was to do an exterior visual inspection of the outside, starting at the front
Yes.
and then walk your way around. So I know you have somewhat of a PowerPoint here, so we're going to kind of walk through this a little bit, showing you slide number 3 of 69 on State's Exhibit 114. This is a title page, and this is more for the record. It says exterior 693 faults. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. Showing you slide 4. What are we looking at here?
So that's kind of looking at the front, and the front would be the south side and the west side of the house. Kind of an overview.
All right. And I guess slide 5 of 69 is just going back to the front. Let's go to slide 6 of 69. What are we looking at here?
So that's looking at the east side of the house. So you could see the degree of damage, as I explained on about the first fire. We worked the fire from the least to the most damage. And when you see this, the most amount of damage is on the front of the structure, the porch area. And as it goes to the back of the house, it's less fire damage.
And you had indicated, I think previously in your prior testimony, that what's the significance of a porch fire?
So a porch fire, usually when you see a porch fire, a fire occurring on a porch, it burns. It's usually, in most cases, in the inner city, urban areas, that it's usually a set fire on a porch of some material or ignitable liquids.
All right. And is there typically things on a porch that, strike that, let me ask that a little bit better. When you talk about inside, last time you were here, we talked about the items in the kitchen and the things in the basement, like the hot water heater and
Yes.
the stove and things like that, that typically would cause an accidental fire.
Right.
Are there things like that on the porch that are necessary or normal to be there that cause accidental
Yes.
fires?
Yeah. People store all kinds of stuff on their porch. You know, whether it be something electrical, whether it be smoking material. You can go out on the front porch and sit and smoke. So yeah, people store all kinds of stuff that could accidentally cause a fire on the front porch.
All right. And looking at slide 6 here, I see that you have the arrow again, the yellow arrow. What is that signifying in this picture?
So it's explaining or showing the movement patterns of the fire, and fire burns upward and outward, and you can see that the bottom portion of the arrow, or near the porch area, the fire is all the way down to the ground level, and then it's moving upward to the roof level.
All right.
So it's telling me or indicating to us that the fire originates low at the ground level there on the outside of that porch and moves upward to the side of the structure.
All right. And part of determining whether it's accidental or intentional is to find out where it started. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. So this is kind of leading you to that area. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. After you do your visual inspection, you've seen this fire, you see the pattern that you see here. Did you start noticing any similarities in the other fire that you saw on Falls?
Overruled, you may answer.
Yeah, it's an outside exterior fire,
All right.
similar to the other fire on Fulton.
All right. And at this point in time, do you have the canine come in again, Indian?
Yes, the canine is responding also to this scene.
All right. And at this point, are your suspicions where are your suspicions that the fire started?
Right now, at this point, we're still doing our walk around, but all indications is the fire is on or near the front porch.
Okay. And when you bring India in, does she then hit on certain areas?
Yes, the investigator, that canine handler, Weber, deployed India on the area, and yes, the canine did indicate or alert to areas on the front porch.
All right. And going to slide 7, what are we looking at here?
That's just the back side and the east side of the house showing less fire damage. And another indication that the fire started on the exterior is you see the windows on the side, and in the rear there's no fire or smoke really venting out those windows. So it's an indication to us as an investigator that the fire started on the exterior and worked its way to the interior.
All right. And slide 8.
That is a diagram of the scene and the evidence samples that were collected, or that was collected at the scene.
All right. And so we just had Investigator Illig come in and testify about creating this diagram. And does this diagram match what you witnessed at the scene with India hitting in certain areas of the front porch of that home?
Yes.
Okay. And that was slide 8, in case I didn't say it. So at some point in time then, we're looking at slide 9 now. Tell us what this is showing us here.
So this is showing the east side of the house, the front porch area, the front porch. And this is showing where 2 large city-owned plastic trash cans were. And you can see the squares are where those trash cans were located during the fire. Those cans were completely melted down to the ground.
And what is this? And well, let me just first go to 10. So in slide 10 of States 114, there's actually one of those trash cans you described there in that picture. Is that fair?
Yes, we went up and got one of the trash cans from the neighbors to use as an exemplar.
Okay. So going back to slide 9 then, you can't really tell on the photograph, but there was some, I guess, remnants of those trash cans that you were able to then make these kind of squares to kind of indicate where they might have been.
Yes, the bottoms of the trash cans were, like I said, melted down to the ground.
All right. So what's the significance of that in your investigation?
When we see trash containers like this melted all the way to the ground, and they're pretty good sized trash containers, go up about almost past halfway to the porch, it's an indicator to us that the fire originated in the trash cans. And based on the burn patterns that we see on the portion of the porch, that confirms that this area here is where the fire originated and spread into the porch area from this direction, from east to west.
All right. In slide 11, what are we seeing here?
That's just another example of the different view of the trash can. You can see how it matches up with the burn patterns on the side of the porch.
Could you show us with your finger there what you're talking about?
So you can see here's the top level of the trash can. Here's where the fire starts burning onto the porch and then spread into the inside of the porch. Now you can see over here, there's no fire damage because there's no trash can, there's no fuel on this side.
All right. And then showing you slide 12. What is this showing us? And then I see there's 3 yellow arrows on here. Where are they there to indicate?
So these are the movement patterns that we see from the trash can location being out here and the fire moving up over the porch railing, through the porch railing, and down at the bottom of the step area. moving in a western direction.
All right, so in this slide 13, we see the same diagram that we saw earlier, but now placards 1 and 2 are, have a red square around them, fair?
Yes.
And what is it that, did you collect those samples 1 and 2 from where India hit?
Yes, I believe those would have been collected.
All right. And this would be slide number 14, is that depicting those 2 placards?
Yes.
And 15
Just a close-up
of
one.
number 1?
Yes.
And slide 16?
Close-up of 2.
Okay. And now we're showing that diagram again. This time there's red squares, highlights around 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. And are those where you recall India hitting at that time?
Yes.
And showing you slide 18, is this, what is this?
That's the overview of India's alert or hitting locations 3, 4, 5, and 6.
And of course, you testified last time about the process you went through in regards to clearing areas for the dog to be able to get to and do it safely. Has that been done in this photograph?
It was just a walkover, and then some of the fire debris removed so the dog can get in there and work the area.
All right. And again, we'll just walk through these real quickly. Slide 19.
Just a close-up of 3.
And does that indicate the process of bagging the sample that you took for 3?
Yes. Yes.
And slide 20.
Close-up of number 4 of the sample collection.
And slide 21.
Close-up of number 5 of the sample.
And 22.
And a close-up of number 6
Okay.
of the sample.
Now, there were some additional samples that were collected, is that correct? I think 7, 8, 9, and 10?
Yes.
All right, but those were not depicted in the photographs, is that fair?
Correct.
However, they were submitted for testing, is that fair?
Correct.
Okay. So looking at slide 23, what are we seeing here?
That is the remnants of some baby strollers and a lawnmower.
Okay, and so that lawnmower, and if our perception is right, that railing we see there, where would the trash can remnants have been in relation to that railing?
The trash can railing, the trash can would have been outside of this railing. So it would be outside. This is the inside of the porch. Trash cans are out here.
All right, so how is it that you can determine whether the fire started, let's say in that lawnmower that has, I'm assuming uses gas, as opposed to the fire?
It's based there again, the movement and the intensity patterns clearly show that the fire started on the outside of the porch and worked its way inside based on all the degree of damage and the fire patterns.
All right, and if, just hypothetically, assume for a moment that that fire started right there where that lawnmower is, what would we see differently?
You would see less fire debris, more consumption of the wood and the porch floor and the railings from the inside to the outside.
All right, so we wouldn't see all that burnt area you showed us behind the trash can, or as much?
Correct.
Okay. If the fire had, again, hypothetically started where the lawnmower is, what would we see as far as the trash cans?
They would not be melted.
And slide 24,
Just a close-up of the lawnmower.
and now we have slide 25. What is this showing?
Just close-up of sample number 7.
Okay, and that sample number 7, would that have been right near the steps on the front porch?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And slide 26 of 69, what is this showing us?
That's showing Investigator Weber in that area. There was some charcoal briquettes located in that area.
And what's the significance of that?
Well, there's no significance. It's people store that stuff on their porch, but the canine was up in that area, so we found that area, and of course the dog would alert that because it has petroleum already in it.
All right, and showing you slide 27, what is that?
Just a close-up of those charcoal.
All right, and was that placard number 8 where the dog would have hit?
Yeah, so we collected that because, you know, we knew it was evidence there just to see if it had the petroleum already in it.
Okay, and so you said there's no significance to that. As a layperson, I go and I see a fire on a porch and I see charcoal. As a layperson, I'm going to say, well, how do we know that that didn't start the fire? That's not where it started.
Yeah, there was no heat sources there to start a fire on the charcoal.
All right, and if that charcoal hypothetically was the source or origin of the fire, what would we have seen in that regard?
You would see white ash. The charcoal briquettes were burned up.
Okay. And going back to this photograph, they appear to be still intact?
Yes.
Showing you slides 29, what are we looking at here?
That was a cigar wrapper found at the bottom of the trash can.
All right, and so why is it that we can still see this and this didn't burn?
Because it was at the actual bottom of the trash can. So everything from the top down, the trash can burned and melted to the bottom, and that was at the bottom, already at the bottom.
I see, okay. And then states 30,
Same thing, that wrapper put in a evidence bag.
and then I said states 30, slide 30, now we're at slide 31. What is this?
A lighter that was found there again at the bottom of the trash can.
And again, not consumed because,
Because it's at the bottom of the trash can.
all right. And slide 32,
It's a remnants of a gas container, plastic red gas container that was on the sidewalk of the house.
and since that's not on the diagram, I'm gonna move back to the diagram for a second here. Where on this, since that was placard 10, it doesn't show placard 10, but does it show on the diagram the actual location of the container?
Right there.
All right. And that's, but it was melted, fair?
Yes.
And going back to slide 32, that's what we're seeing there.
Yes.
All right. And how do you know that this was not the source or origin of the fire?
The burn patterns don't support that. That was just from exposure to the heat and stuff, and of course it had gas in it. Container melted during the fire, and it was away from the area of origin of the fire.
All right. And I'm not sure, showing you slide 7, where, can you tell on here where that gas can would have been?
It would have been on around this sidewalk or porch railing, going to the side of the house.
All right. And obviously, we can see that there's no fire along the side of the house there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, moving to slide 33, what are we looking at here?
That is the east side of the house where the electrical meter is located.
And showing you 34.
It's close up of the electrical meter.
And again, you talked about this last time. These photographs we're about to see, are these, what's the purpose of showing us the meter?
So, a couple of purposes is one, documenting that there was electric service in the house. Two is that the electric meter was examined there, and it's very little fire damage to the main cable and to the meter itself. It's just the damage that you see is from exposure and from the vinyl siding melting down onto the meter.
In slide 35,
That's just showing the stairs in that side of the house and the charcoal grill that was located on the side of the house.
and show us where that charcoal grill would have been, or is in the picture.
It's right there, and it was moved, it kind of moved out of the way by the firefighters during suppression activities.
Okay, so that's why it looks like it's upside down.
Yes.
Slide 36,
Just a close-up, once we uprighted the charcoal grill and put it to the proximate location that we could see where it was at.
and of course, you know, you're taking a photograph of this to show what?
That there was no fire damage to the grill.
All right. And would that be eliminating it as a source of the fire?
Yes.
And slide 37,
Just another close-up documenting that there was no fire damage to the grill.
in slide 38,
Just more parts of the grill laying on the floor after it was tipped over by the firefighters.
and slide 39.
Inside the firebox of the grill.
Okay. Lots of photos of the grill, right? Slide
Yes.
40,
Yes.
and which slide 40?
That's just the inside where the charcoal briquettes would have been.
And slide 41, what are we looking at here?
This is just in the area before you go down the steps there, just to the right is where the charcoal grill was. And you can see the fire damage, and the fire is coming more from the south to the north.
All right. Slide 42,
It's an outside electrical outlet, just documenting that there's no fire damage or no causation from the electrical outlet.
all right. Now, to the layperson, it looks to be somewhat, you know, burnt, or at least like a burnt color to it. If this was the source of the fire, what would be different, if anything?
So that's made out of aluminum, those boxes. That box would have been melted. The outlets protected by the exterior covers would have been melted and damaged severely by fire.
And slide 43,
Just a close-up showing that the degree that there wasn't a lot of fire damage to that outlet.
all right. So slide 44 is a title slide which indicates interior of 693 Fultz, first floor basement. First floor / basement. So let's look at slide 45. What are we looking at here?
That's first floor going up to the second floor via the steps.
All right. And so these next series of photographs are going to just be interior shots of the house. And would they be then for the purposes of eliminating other sources of the fire?
Yeah, we're looking inside to see, you know, if there again, did the fire start inside or outside? And by doing the interior examination, we're able to tell based on the fire patterns that the fire originated outside and moved into the interior of the structure.
In slide 47,
There again, just showing the front door from the porch coming into the living room of the structure.
slide 48,
Second floor going up to the second floor stairway.
49,
That's another interior view of the living room.
and of course in the center of that is a fireplace.
Yes.
And is there anything of significance of that?
Just documentation that the fire didn't originate in the fireplace.
And slide 50,
Just overview of the living room area.
all right. And it seems that when you take these photographs, when these photographs are taken, you start at one location and then kind of
Yes.
pan around the room so you
Yes.
get a picture of everything.
Yes.
And slide 51.
That's moving into, I believe, the dining room area of the structure.
And 52,
And just looking into, I believe, that might be into the kitchen area.
all right, and 53,
And that's the kitchen area there.
all right. And again, concerns in the kitchen area, slide 54, what are the concerns in the kitchen area?
So just eliminating the gas stove, all the knobs are in the off position. There was no indication of any fire starting on the stove.
All right. And slide 55,
That's the stove top.
slide 56,
That's coming in from the east side into inside the house and just documenting the lack of fire damage inside.
And this was the side where that grill would have been? By
Yes.
that door?
Yes.
And then slide 57 is another title slide, basement of 693 volts, is that fair?
Yes.
All right, and so 58,
Just documenting the appliances and the lack of fire damage in the basement.
okay, and 59,
The gas hot water tank, there again, the source of ignition, source of fire. We examine that, look at that, and say that that didn't cause the fire.
and 60,
The gas furnace,
61,
dryer,
62,
and just an overview of the entire basement.
63,
Documenting that the house had natural gas service in it.
all right, and 64 is another title page, which says miscellaneous items, correct?
Yes.
And slide 65,
That was a picture of the cell phone that was found by one of the victims inside the house.
found on one of the victims or by?
Yes, on one of the victims.
Okay. And do you recall which victim?
Mrs. Boggs.
And slide 66,
The cell phone being placed in an evidence bag.
and then 67,
The vehicle that was parked out in front of the driveway, in front of the residence,
slide 68.
just documenting the license plate.
All right. At this point in time, you don't necessarily know whose vehicle that is that?
That's correct.
And slide 69 is a blank slide, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So Investigator Peterman, strike that. Did you have an opportunity to view the surveillance cameras that came from 714 faults that were related to the time period that this fire would have taken place?
Yes.
And what period of time would that have been in relation to May 15th?
It was the same, I mean, when I viewed it,
Yes.
I don't recall when I viewed it. It was soon after the actual fire itself.
All right. Is it fair to say that unlike 719's fire, you did not have a video of somebody on, or somebody on video lighting the porch on fire?
That's correct.
All right. So in this case, you actually, well, you did in that one too, but in this case, did you then make a determination based on your training and experience as to whether this fire was intentionally set or accidentally set?
Based on the scene examination, the fire patterns, and the information obtained through the course of the investigation, we determined that the fire was intentionally set.
All right. And is that opinion based on a reasonable degree of scientific certainty?
Yes.
At some point in time, you were able to view that surveillance camera, and in that video, were you able to see on the porch of 714 reflections from the fire?
Yes.
And what, if any, significance did you have when you viewed those, the lights flickering?
Clearly, when you view the video and you see the lights or the flash, that's a flash from a fire, that's indicative of an ignitable liquid being ignited, such as gasoline or any petroleum product that you would put an open flame to.
All right. And so the jury has not seen that at this point yet, but you had an opportunity to see it. So I want to, without showing it to them at this point, is there a difference between was there a difference between a flash and just the constant flickering of flames being reflected?
Yes.
All right. And was that clear to you as a fire investigator?
Yes.
And please tell us again the significance of the flash versus just a constant flame.
So based on when you see the flash, and we've experimented and tested this on numerous occasions. When you pour, and I'm going to use gasoline for the example, when you pour gasoline on something and you take an open flame, whether it's a lighter or a match, the vapors immediately ignite. It's not the liquid, it's the vapors that immediately ignite, and you get a flash. And I've had it happen just from burning brush at home, and flash, and that's why people get burned and get flash burned, because it's so instantaneously. It's quick, and you hear that woof when that ignitable liquid is ignited. Those vapors are ignited, and it's immediate.
All right. And you can, based on your training experience, can give us an opinion that that was from an accelerant that would have vapors that exploded versus somebody that went to the trash can and took a match or a lighter and light the paper that was in there.
Yes.
All right. And based on your viewing of it and the timing of it, you believe that to be what? Which of the two? Did you believe it was an accelerant, or do you believe it was somebody just lighting
It
paper?
was an accelerant being used.
Okay. I know that was inartful. Okay. So you've had this, you've made this opinion that it is an intentionally set fire.
Yes.
Are you involved in further investigation regarding potential suspects in this case?
Yes.
Were you present when the search of Mr. Boggs took place in Portage County?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Our office assisted the Akron PD in executing a search warrant in Portage County, Mr. Boggs' residence. Our canine Indian was brought in and searched the vehicle and the residence, and there was evidence collected there.
All right. And the evidence that was collected at that scene, do you recall what that was?
Several articles of clothing.
All right. And were those items then submitted to the lab for testing?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you to tell the jury what all those items were, and I know you said there were articles of clothing, you probably, I don't know if you can remember them all off the top of your head, but is there anything that could assist you in
Yeah, the evidence submission sheet, or the evidence analytical sheet.
Okay. The lab report, is that what you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what it marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 117. Yeah. And do you recognize that?
Yes, this is the evidence submission sheet from the case.
Is it the submission sheet or is it the report?
Oh, it's the report.
All right. And you didn't prepare this, correct?
That's correct.
But I'm asking you to use it to refresh your recollection as to what items were actually submitted.
So the items submitted from the search warrant were items 11 through 20.
And could you just tell us what those items are? Describe them for us.
A sock from Mr. Boggs, and another sock. It was his clothes, camo shorts, a black t-shirt. And then from his residence, 15 was from the fire scene. And then 16 through 20 were clothing items, blue jeans, blue underwear, blue pants, blue sweatpants, and a black hoodie from his address, from his residence.
That was Mr. Boggs.
Yes.
And that was 645 Hazen, apartment 104, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. And that was actually in Portage County where you lived? All right. And were you present when India did the search at his location and of Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Okay. And I think we've had prior testimony regarding India's results in that situation. You were there for those?
Yes.
Okay. You also, well, I should show you 117 again. Actually, I'm going to show it to you out here. Okay. So basically, this is that report, and you had indicated down here 11 through 20 were the items that were collected from Mr. Boggs in his apartment. On the top of that sheet, there's 1 through 10. Which items are those? Where are they from? 1 through 10.
Those are from the fire scene.
So those are the ones that match up with the placards 1 through 10 in the
Yes.
photographs we've just seen, correct?
Yeah, and number 15.
Okay. And then on the side, it says test A, and that was what you requested, correct? The type of testing you wanted.
Yes.
All right. And A was for what? Accelerant?
Testing for ignitable liquids,
Okay.
accelerators.
Did you also have the opportunity to be involved in the execution of a search warrant related to Mr. Stanley Ford?
Yes.
And when was that, if you recall?
I don't recall the date. It was a couple days after the fire.
All right, it wasn't the same day.
Right, it was not the same day.
And do you know which addresses that those searches took place?
At the two residents where he on the side street there, I don't recall the address. There's two residents that he owned.
All right.
We were there.
If I told you it was 1370 and 1374 Hillcrest, was that?
Hillcrest, yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what I'm marking as State's Exhibit number 118. And assuming again that you can't recall off the top of your head all the items that were collected and sent to the lab for testing, I'm going to show you that document. You recognize that?
Yes.
And what is that document?
These are the items collected from Mr. Ford's residence, 1370 Hillcrest and 1374.
All right. And what numbers are those?
22 through 33.
All right. And could you just tell us what those specifically those items are?
Item 22 was a gray Carhartt coat that we located in the basement. Item 23 was a green Carhartt coat that was located in the bedroom. 24 was a blue hooded zipper sweatshirt. It was in the office area. 25 was a blue sweatshirt from the upstairs bedroom. 26 was a pair of green sneakers we found in the trash can near the office at 1370 Hillcrest. 27 was blue sweatpants from downstairs bedroom. 28 was liquid from a red container. 29 was liquid from a lighter fluid container. 30 was liquid from a red container labeled mixed gas. 31 was a plastic lighter fluid container. 32 was a red plastic container labeled mixed gas. And 33 was a red container with clear liquid present in it.
All right. And the items that are listed as red container, those containers, tell us what those would be, the jury would understand.
So those are gasoline containers.
All right. The type of thing we use to fill gas in our lawnmowers and other
Yes.
lawn equipment.
Yes.
Okay. And is it any surprise that those items would be in somebody's house?
No.
All right. In regards to the items that were collected, it sounds like there was lots of clothing items. Were you involved in deciding what of those type items were to be collected, or was that more on the APD side?
No, it was our items that we collected, basically just from clothing descriptions and stuff that was seen on video. Those are the items that we were there to collect.
All right. And in the video, I think there was testimony already that appeared, at least on the first video, that there was a person wearing a hood.
Hood, yes.
All right. So basically, was every hood that was found in that house collected regardless?
Yes.
Okay. Now, a couple of the things that you have it's all right. So 119 would be
Yeah,
next?
that's what
Yeah.
we're next.
Okay. So I'm going to show you what I'm marking as State's Exhibit number 119. Do you recognize this?
Yes, these are the tennis shoes that we found in Mr. Ford's residence in the trash can in the office area.
And in the, they appear to be missing the shoelaces. Is that how they were found, or were the shoelaces removed?
No, this is how they were found.
Okay. And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit number 120. Now, this is going to go back. Do you recognize what that is?
Yes, this is the video DVR found in the residence by Akron Fire from the first fire.
S2.
He's renewing prior. Renewing prior.
Oh, okay, overruled. You may answer.
Yes, so this was the DVR that was found by Akron Fire in the residence of the first fire.
Now, we had heard testimony from Investigator Polk that initially there was something collected that they thought was a DVR,
Yes,
and that turned out not to be.
that's correct.
And so then Investigator Polk indicated that he went back and got a DVR. Did you receive that then from Polk?
Yes,
And is that the item you received?
yes.
Investigator Peterman, as an investigator, when you submit items to the lab for testing for accelerants, if you tested something like, let's say, at the scene where you thought the origin of the fire was, and you thought there was an accelerant, if that test comes back as negative for an accelerant, does that, or can that alter your opinion as to whether it was intentionally set or accidentally set?
No, the determination of the cause of the fire is not based on if you get positive samples. It's based on the fire patterns, the lack of accidental ignition sources, the movement patterns, and the general origin itself of what could have started the fire.
And although we haven't had testimony yet of the results of the testing of the samples, hypothetically at this point, if the location of your origin that you determined in this fire had no accelerant, does that change your opinion, or would that change your opinion as to whether there was an accelerant used or not?
No, there very well could have been. It could have been consumed through the consumption of the fuel, the materials, like for this case, in a trash can, piled on top. That fuel, that accelerant would have been consumed through the course of the fire as it's burning, and there again too, also through extinguishment of the fire itself.
All right. And so does the material that the surface is made of, such as the trash being paper or cardboard or things of that nature versus wood on the porch, do those things have any effect on the likelihood of finding an accelerant or not?
Well, the paper is less dense. It has less mass, so that any accelerant on paper or trash, because it's paper or plastic bags, has less mass, so it would consume that liquid quicker than if it was poured onto the porch because the wood would absorb that liquid into the wood, and it would leave some remnants on there.
And the opinions that you've given today, are they all within a reasonable degree of medical scientific certainty?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Mr. Riley?
I just have very few questions for you, Mr. Peterman, but if your report says that the search warrant at Mr. Ford's house was on May 18th, Thursday, May 18th, 2017, you would not dispute that, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You talked about items that you took during that search warrant. Were those items that the dog India hit on, or did you just go through the house gathering up what you thought was important?
I believe it was a combination of both, what an investigator, what we thought was important, and what the dogs indicated on.
And I think you testified for Mr. LaPrenzi that you went through the house and you got every hoodie that you could find, correct?
A good attempt was made to find any hoodie.
Judge, do you mind if I approach?
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to show you a couple pictures, Mr. Peterman. We got defendants exhibit 3, 4, and 5.
C, D, and F.
Or C, D, and F.
Yeah, C, D, and E.
Oh,
I didn't help it.
C, D, and E.
Oh,
C, D, and E.
I always do math as
A, B, C, D, E, F.
C, D, and E. Sorry.
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
I see.
I apologize.
No.
All right, Mr. Peterman, C, D, and E. You look at those and tell me if you recognize them.
Yes.
All right, now I'll take the next slide on that camera. Judge, do I have to deactivate the computer to get the document camera on?
No, just pick the, here.
Well, there it is, then we'll just do that. All right, Mr. Peterman, Defendant's Exhibit C. Can you tell the jury what that is?
So it's a heavy coat, like a Carhartt coat.
And that was the Carhartt coat that you obtained from Mr. Ford's house, correct?
Yes. Yes.
And I believe that you previously testified when you were looking at the forensic laboratory submission sheet would have been item 22.
I would recall, yes.
And now showing you Exhibit D. Can you tell us what that is?
It's another Carhartt coat that was found in the residence.
Of Mr. Ford.
Yes.
And corresponds with item 23, the next item on the laboratory report, submission report.
I would take your word without looking at the sheet.
And Exhibit E, can you tell the folks of the jury what that is?
That is another hooded like coat or sweatshirt.
Again, taking from Mr. Ford's residence,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And you would agree with me that it would correspond with item number 24, correct?
I'll take your word, yes, Lord.
You wouldn't dispute that, correct?
No.
All those pictures fairly and accurately portray the evidence that you recovered that day?
Yes.
All right. You talked with Mr. LaPrenzi about the gas container, and you said it was not unexpected or unusual to find a gas container in that house, correct?
It would have been that residence next door, his other residence next door, yes.
And it was in close proximity to the lawnmower that was also stored in that house,
Yes.
correct? Now that you've had a chance to look at the report, you can verify that those correspond with, those exhibits C, D, and E correspond with the laboratory report numbers?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Investigator Peterman, you had mentioned that the containers were found in the house next door to where he lived, fair?
Yes.
And is it fair that it appeared in that house to be like a storage area, like almost like a garage?
Yes.
So he had lawn equipment, gas, things of that nature?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. That's not where you found the sneakers, is it?
No,
Where were the sneakers found?
those are in his actual residence where he lived in the office area.
All right, where the gas tanks, the gas cans, the red containers were not found in that house?
That's correct.
Okay. As far as the items that were collected that were clothing that appeared to be hooded, you're not here today to tell us that those matched the hooded items worn in the, or seen in the video, are you?
That's correct.
All of the photographs that you looked at today, do they fairly and accurately depict the scene as you saw them on those days?
Yes.
You're right, I have nothing further.
You may step down. Thank you, Mr. Peterman. Sure.
Mr. Peterman, hold on for 1 minute while we have our sidebar.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's 2:30. I realize that we haven't been going, but there's one additional witness for today. So, and there's some evidence, there's a lot of items that they need to go through. So it's I thought if it was gonna be a short witness, we could plow through and get done a little early, which I still believe we're gonna get done a little early, but we're gonna take a 15-minute break for you to all stretch your legs. Again, remember the admonitions I've given you at all breaks. Make sure you don't talk about this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Don't let anyone else talk about it in your presence. If they do, report it to me or Mr. Masich immediately. And again, leave your notepads upside down on your chairs. And then I'm going to go with 2:30. And so if you'll be back at 2:40, we'll start at that point in time. So about 12 minutes.
All right, please.